Welcome to Wellness Wednesday for the month of November 2025. Today is November 19th. It is currently 4 p.m. Pacific, and I am so excited to bring you guys an amazing Wellness Wednesday for well-being for fire and forestry students with the expanse of really anybody that wants to learn professionally, which is super, super exciting because that technically includes everybody. I love learning different kinds of things, so a lot of this will be applicable just in learning new tasks and skills, as well as making sure that you're staying up with particularly being a student in fire, as well as just a student in general universities or schools. So this, if you want to apply this as a high schooler, this is applicable for you as well. So before I get too far ahead of myself. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is Ann Martin. I am a master practitioner. I am a first responder, a facilitator, a teacher, a coach. I love working with group and individual transformation. I love being able to see somebody learn something new and get confident in new skills and really make a difference in their own lives and other people's lives. So my intention for a lot of these Wellness Wednesdays and for today specifically is to provide you with a presentation that allows you to learn something that you haven't recognized before and then have enough motivation or enough excitement to be able to do something with those skills. So that's what we're looking at today. So, what does mental health have to do with any of your studies or learning anything new? So, mental health is pretty cool. We don't always think of it as cool, though. So, health in general. So, if you think you're a healthy person, a lot of people just go towards the physical health portion in your mind. So, if you think you're healthy, well, I'm eating right, I am exercising, I'm hydrating, I'm sleeping. Those are all, they have benefits towards your mental health, but those are all physical health based things. So, when we talk about mental health and studying and learning things, it directly correlates with your performance health in how we think, act, and recover. And it really focuses on how your mind is supporting your body. We all know that your mind is connected to your body's connected to the mind. We can't just like detach our heads and make our brains think about something else that's discoordinated from our bodies. And if we think about the health of our mind, that's how we're usually going to perform. If our mind is not in a very happy place, our performance is going to struggle in some way. So success isn't just effort. If we were just to try really, really hard, we would get all the things that we wanted to get because I know a lot of you are very effortful. You guys are very focused and do a lot of things all at once. It can be a lot measured of success based on your energy management and your mindset awareness. So, when we talk about energy management and mindset awareness, we want to make sure that you understand your mind. So you stop fighting yourself and you really start working with yourself rather than trying to like manipulate what's going on with you and just saying, well, I don't like how I feel right now. I should be doing something different or trying to do something that's almost unnatural. So when we look in fire forestry or really any high demand field, which can be just a student at a university, your mental state and your mental readiness depends on and produces how you're going to show up physically. So if I'm not really focused and I'm distracted, or if I am dealing with a lot of grief, I'm not going to show up physically very well to my classes or to my seminars or towards any of my studies or inclination to learn anything new and grow as a human being. So I have personally spent years with first responders, students, and other professionals working on mental resilience and performance. And I have seen that success isn't necessarily about working harder. Because, like I said, you guys are really good at doing that already. It's not just that, it's about learning how your own brain works. And it's going to be different for every single person. So, when we're talking about mental health, mindset, motivation, and the science of getting things done, here's why a lot of this really matters and why your mind body connection is so important in this field. So, in fields like fire and forestry, we're trained to handle stress. We're trained to handle unpredictability and long hours, but nobody teaches us how to basically handle like this invisible load of staying motivated, managing overwhelm, staying connected, keeping a healthy brain, and really just staying top of your own energy management so that you don't lead to burnout or any sort of PTSD like symptoms. So, this whole session here is about giving you practical tools that are simple, scientifically backed, and things that you can use today to study better, to feel better, to stay connected, and so that you can build like a long, healthy, successful career. So, some of the things that we're going to talk about are mindset and motivation and how you manage some follow through with that motivation so we don't fall into what we call procrastination, and then making sure that you stay connected and resilient, not just learning by yourself. So there is some great initiation and value in learning by yourself, and we learn more effectively when we're able to teach it to someone else or learning with someone else in the same field. So, As we look at this mind-body connection that I was just talking about, there's a lot of neuroscience around stress and mindset that says if you are stressed out, you're not going to be fully present. And when stress rises, your brain enters like this protection mode. So the amygdala, it shuts down and plans basically for you to move around the stress rather than work through it and just to get it over with as fast as possible. So stress is not inherently a bad thing because it can initiate some action within you. Same with a little bit of anger or frustration. It can show that something is wrong or something is off and that a change needs to be made. So just by itself, stress is not necessarily bad. It's when you accumulate that stress, it then activates something within your body that says something needs to change. And if you choose the correct action, that can sharpen your focus, like it says here, or it can cause some overload, overwhelm, or just some dysfunction within your mind and body. So, your brain's threat system, like I said, the amygdala, overrides the regular plan or the schedule that you had set out for the day when it doesn't have enough resources to stay focused. So, I have a background in NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, and some mindfulness techniques. And on both of these studies can help shift the brain back into choice instead of reaction. So, as we look at that here, there's studies from Harvard and Stanford that show that even 2 to 3 minutes of being more mindful, especially with breathing, can reduce stress hormones and increase cognitive control just by taking that little bit of a break. So, the best way to do that here is just to initiate some sort of ab reaction to some of this stress that we tend to sit with all the time. So, some of this is just having an awareness of what's going on that tends to cause this stress or tends to disalign that mind body focus that we like when we're studying. So, the first thing is you need to be aware of your patterns. So, that might look like what success looks like to you and just being able to identify that so you know when something is off and becoming aware of something that you might like to change. So something that's not ideal for you in the perfect future that you've envisioned, then you can start coming up with options that you can test out in different circumstances to see what works best for you. So if you can tell something's not perfectly ideal, what can you try? What can you put your hands into just to see if this works? Maybe push your boundaries a little bit just to get a little bit creative with changing something to become ideal. And once you kind of have like a set of skills that you keep using consistently and you're working towards some things, then, once you found something that's not working ideal, then you'll be able to create a wedge. So, us as human beings, we have strategies for literally everything, between putting your pant leg in or your leg in your pants, to brushing your teeth, to driving, to making sure you make it to work on time, to heating up your food before you go to bed, whatever that looks like. All of these different things we have a strategy for, whether it's conscious or unconscious. The way we change behavior is by putting a wedge in some of those strategies. So, we are able to create congruency between our mind and our body by intentionally sitting with our senses. And that's how we start to work in these wedges, in these patterns, by becoming aware of those patterns and then being able to identify where we want to go instead. So we will know where to put the wedge and how to stick it in there so that the behavior that we're trying to create then becomes ideal. So, students, you guys, they're in high stress fields like forestry, emergency response, medicine, engineering, we tend to show a higher level of burnout, of anxiety, and fatigue just academically. And it's like a 70% increase in high demand programs of a lot of you guys that are in these high stress spaces, that you're having your performance interfered with based on the stress that we are receiving. And that's not because you're weak, it's not because you can't handle it, because I'm included in this purview of people as well. It's because we're human and can only manage so much stress in every given second. So your nervous system is built to protect you, not to be overwhelming. When we experience constant pressure, deadlines, ambiguity, stuff that we don't quite understand, competitiveness, or just even long hours, the brain goes into like a little bit of a cognitive overload and it starts to create those unideal circumstances that we were looking at. So the reason why it does that, and the reason why you're starting to notice that a little bit more, that dysfunction, is because you want to get something done, you want to study, you want to focus, you want to get the whatever success you're looking for, but you're still procrastinating. Or you can feel motivated at 1 hour and then super flat the next. Or you can even know your goals, you can understand what you want, but then somehow still feel disconnected from them. So when we get to this space, There's nothing that's wrong with you, I promise, because I have felt this before too. You just need particular systems that we're going to work with here. So let's take a look at how we can start building some of those, particularly with motivation. So it helps to understand what we're working with here. So motivation is a great thing. If you feel motivated, you're likely going to get quite a bit done while you're feeling motivated, but it isn't like the magic pill that's going to get everything done for you. So it's the byproduct of clarity and emotional connection. So there's something that creates motivation within you. Remember, I said we all have strategies for everything? Believe it or not, there's an unconscious strategy for you to feel motivation as well. So it's not a motivation isn't a personality trait. It's more of a neurologic response, like I said, to clarity and emotional connection and meaning making out of what you're doing as well. So, like I said, I'm a master in excuse me, a master practitioner in neuro linguistic programming, and that specific field of study tells extent your past experiences have showed you where you could be successful, and your brain is going to tell you what patterns you can kind of call upon to create new success. So just making sure that I am still connected here. The thing that helps here is to be able to visualize your why, visualize your end result. And this can be best done by making sure that you connect those results into other spaces of your life. So, if I am successful in my studies, does my family benefit? Does my community benefit? Do my friends benefit? Do my kids benefit? Do my parents benefit? Who else is actually going to benefit when I succeed? How do I succeed? How do I feel when I succeed? Do I feel joy? Do I feel happiness? Do I feel confidence? What kind of feelings are arising? What am I saying to myself? Am I saying congratulations? Am I saying I am so proud of being able to deal with all the stress? Am I saying I'm so glad I was able to connect with so many people and learn from so many different kinds of people? So just connecting and visualizing that future that you're creating, knowing what you want, and then really making that as real as possible for you. So taking in all of that sensory information for what you want. So when we talk about what gets in the way of some of those things, procrastination tends to be one of those things that gets in the way of us being successful. And procrastination can hide fear or fatigue, and it tends to come from the sensory information that the brain is looking at for uncertainty or difficulty or fear of failure or even just like knowing where to start. So procrastination usually works off of something that you're trying to avoid, and it's not usually consciously known. So this is something that we have to start digging around a little bit from. And one of these questions on here is like, what am I protecting myself from? It's usually because we have some sort of fear, right? Whether that's truly the fear of us being fully successful, like, can I handle making $1 million a year? Can I handle being more successful than all of my siblings? Can I handle being a leader in the fire service? Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like to me? Am I actually ready for that? So once you've identified what it is, and once you've identified maybe what you're worried about, you can start mitigating. Well, I have other people that I can talk to, that I can model off of, that will help me be successful in these areas, and I have no need to worry about it because I've already shown myself that I can be successful in so many other areas that regardless of what happens to me, I can be resourceful and I can figure it out and make sure that I am successful in what I want to do without being truly fearful of what's going to happen. I always like to say there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. So it's actually good if you start to learn how to fail and learn how to deal with things that go wrong. It's going to make you a better problem solver. It's going to make you a better resourceful person, being able to ask people for different kinds of things and just being able to figure out where to ask through some of these purposes. So when we talk about the 5 minute rule here, so what gets in the way or what creates procrastination is usually some sort of avoidance of, for whatever reason, like I said, there's uncertainty, difficulty, fear, or not knowing where to start. If we start trying to mitigate procrastination, some things you can kind of develop. Like I said, you have a strategy for motivation. So if you can initiate the strategy for motivation, that will help you out. And the other thing I like to use that's super, super practical in a lot of different fields is the 5 minute rule. So if you start a task for 5 minutes, you can tend to build some momentum naturally. So if you have a big task or if you have something you're really not looking forward to, even 2 minutes can be a good start. But if it's a bigger task, like I'm going to study for 5 minutes, I'm going to set a timer, or I'm just going to start and just think about I'm going to study for 5 minutes, or I'm going to focus on this task for 5 minutes. Usually you will dive into the flow of the activity or really the focus of the activity and build some internal and external focus into that. If you can just think, well, I can do this for 5 minutes. You can do just about anything for 5 minutes, right? Just about anything, I think, except maybe run a treadmill 5 minutes for whatever reason or microwave 5 minutes. Why are those minutes so long, right? Anyway, if you can just start for 5 minutes, that will usually build enough momentum and focus for you to continue through the topic. So, let's talk about how we create success and strategies. So, it can help to create clarity as we build strategies for learning. So, really great learners and really great students, I should say, aren't necessarily naturally smart. Most people that are really good at learning are strategic. So before learning something new, before studying whatever it is, it helps to create clarity. What exactly do I need to learn? And why does it matter for whatever future I'm building? It's a great question to ask yourself. What exactly do I need to learn and why does it matter to me? If you can really figure out what the purpose is for you, that can help make the task or the goal more real for you and more exciting. So, when studying and working on these some of these strategies, it can help to break things down into time. Like I said, if you can just do something for 5 minutes, that can kind of create some motivation and momentum into some of these things. And it can also help our brains naturally drop into a bit of a lull every 90 minutes. And this kind of goes into a little bit of brainwave science as well as a little bit of hypnotherapy work. And our brains naturally jump into a little bit of a lull every 90 minutes. We can absolutely override that, but you'll get tired over time if you continue to override it. So if you set yourself up to stay focused and to really build progress, it can help if you do it in either 30-minute, 60-minute, or 90-minute intervals and then create breaks in between those. So if you work for 30 minutes, take a 5-minute break. If you work for 60 minutes, take a 10-minute break. If you work for 90 minutes, take a 15-minute break. And just making sure that the brain's natural attention cycles are being tended to as you're learning something new, because you will learn it more effectively. It will stick better in your brain and you will be more focused overall. It can also help to explain the concepts out loud because then you're getting them from your brain, from the auditory experience outward, or writing them down or teaching them to someone else. It helps you research the topics a little bit better within your own knowledge, maybe even physically on the computer, and it improves retention far more than just like rereading or just re-articulating in your own mind. If you attempt to teach this material to yourself or to someone else, you will learn it more effectively because you'll be able to find the holes where you might be missing just a little key bit of something that will make everything make sense and make it all comprehensive. When we talk about modeling, modeling is also super helpful to make sure that you're understanding what is success for you and what is successful for other people. So when we model someone successful, you find somebody that does something really, really well, and then you basically just go up to them and ask them and say, how do you do this? Because a lot of the times if they do it really well, it's unconscious. They're not thinking about it. They're just really good at it overall. So if you ask them, like, what do you need to prepare to be successful in this area? Like, what do you set yourself up for to be successful? Then what's the first thing you do? Then the next thing you do? What is a really key result that you can't miss in this process to make sure you're successful? What is the very end result you're looking for and what's important about that end result? And then what happens afterwards? So when you model someone, you want to make sure that you are modeling successful behavior and making sure that you pull it apart and ask all the questions that are important to you. Because like I said, those people that are super successful tend to not have to think about it anymore. So make sure that when we're modeling to have success, that we're modeling someone that has it so that we know exactly what we're doing. And the question you can ask them too is like, what do they do differently that makes them successful rather than anybody else that has tried and not been where they want to be? And another question I love doing that going back to that mind body connection, if somebody's successful, what do they believe? What do they value that I don't quite do yet? What beliefs and values do I need to incorporate and need to model and need to embody before I really feel that success that I'm trying to model? So, as we look into this next 1% strategy, most people don't lack motivation. I've said this before, they lack clarity. When you're vague, your brain struggles to take action. That's a little bit where that procrastination can come into. It almost gets overwhelmed with the number of options it has. It's like, I have a solution that I'd like to find, but I just don't know where to start. So when you're specific, your brain goes into problem solving mode. So you can ask yourself, when we get into goal creation or really getting successful, what do I want in the next 6 months? What do I want to do? What do I want to be How do I want to get there? What skills do I want to maintain? What habits do I want to build? And what is the one outcome that would make the biggest difference? If I want to consider myself successful in the next 6 months, that's going to tell me how to study. That's going to tell me how to learn now and between now and the end of the 6 months. But I need to know where I'm going. And I love this question so much. I work with this a lot with a lot of my students and my clients is how do I know when I've achieved it? In NLP, we call this a convincer. This lets you know exactly when you're being successful. This lets you know if you're on the right path or not. If I want to open up a task book and complete the task book, how will I actually know I've completed the task book for firefighter one or for faller one or whatever that looks like for you? How will I know that I have achieved my goal? We call that a convincer because it convinces you that you have done the work to complete the task. And you can do this with tons and tons of things. And I'll mention here as well, when we start setting goals and we know the convincer and we know what it will be like when we are successful and the kinds of habits that we want to have to be successful, what also helps is recognizing about how much of this you've successfully completed. So if I'm going to say, I'm going to fulfill my firefighter one task book and I'm going to complete it and I'm going to become a certified firefighter one on an engine crew. That sounds great. And I want to set a new goal, maybe engine boss or whatever that looks like, when I am 90% done with the current one. And the reason why this is actually going to come back to motivation and procrastination is that you've got a lot of momentum in that last little bit of that goal. You're feeling the progression with this goal moving forward. And when you are 90% done with it, I want you to make another goal that's even bigger than the last one you were almost done with, because that's going to create the momentum. That's going to create the expectation that you're going to continue to be successful into the next space. So, coming to this 1% strategy, take this goal, take the modeling, take the idea and the mind body connection of being successful, and then take it down into an act plan. So, we got to start with knowing where we want to go, and then we want to get more detailed. So, we start really abstract. I want to be here, and I know what that looks like, and I know what the convincer is, I know what that's going to be and feel like. And now I want to get down into the steps. Some of these it can help to be like, I'm going to take just hours. I need to make sure I'm on a learn from people progress here, not progress. Like I said, you can fail things that don't really mean very much because you guys are so resourceful already that you're going to continue to just develop yourself. You're focused on progress, not necessarily perfection. So as long as you are making progress towards that goal that we've just created in our minds and our bodies, as long as you are making improvements, you will get there. I promise. So the implementation might look like after you do one thing, I will do another. And this kind of gets into habit stacking or habit creation and some of those things. So the example here is after I open my laptop, I'm going to read one paragraph. I'm just going to have something on the back of my screen that's maybe an affirmation or maybe something about my goals or something like read that with my teeth. I'm going to take rather on for bed. I'm going to make sure that I say something and I'm going to set myself up for success. I'm going to set my workout clothes out before I go to bed. So you set yourself up. Something that you already do is going to be the initiator. Remember, I said we have a strategy for everything? Something that I already do is going to be the initiator for the next strategy or the next habit that I want to program into my life. So, the reason we are successful with these small habits and these little tiny improvements, these 1% improvements, is because we're celebrating the small wins because that enforces the momentum. So you don't need to celebrate every time you brush your teeth. I'm pretty sure that's a little bit overboard. So there's a little bit of a balance here. But remember when I said breaking down these goals into micro actions, I'm going to take this becoming an engine boss part, and I've got three big factors that need to happen before I become an engine boss. Each one of those, I'm going to make a little bit of celebratory effort because it's telling your unconscious mind, it's telling your brain and your body that what you're doing is successful and it needs to continue doing some of those things. So, please excuse me for jumping over a slide. You want to celebrate those small wins because it's telling your mind what it needs to continue to do. You're just reinforcing that unconscious part of your mind to say, yes, this is something I want you to continue to do. Please continue to do it, even though I'm not actively thinking about it. So the book here that is most successful with some of this stuff is called Atomic Habits by James Clear. it gives you the strategy and the ways to habit stack to make these successful. And he gives you an applicable strategy for you to do it with lots of different things. It's not necessarily just studying, but being healthy on every part of your life. So, with these small wins, with this habit stacking, with creating the big goal and making sure you've got action steps to get there, it builds self trust and creates long term momentum. Like I said, just making sure that you are looking to make that 1% of success and improvement as you're moving along, rather than just being overwhelmed by that big goal or all the choices you could make trying to get there. As we look at building connection to build success and resilience, this is where we want to nurture a lot of our relationships. And this can be just close relationships. So, the two or three people that you are closest to, those are the relationships I want you to focus on. Tell them how you're being successful. Have them support you. Have them be your dumping grounds of, oh my gosh, I'm struggling. And then reciprocate. Do the same with them as well. So, nurture your closest two to three relationships. They will support you in being successful and you're studying and you're learning. And I want you to think about engaging with at least one person. So, if you're in a very individual study, that's great. And I want you to reach out to at least one person and tell them how you're doing, or tell them what went well, or tell them what you struggled with, just to kind of keep a little bit of that personal accountability so that you are always continuing to learn. And with family and friends, it can help out to regularly contact with them, even if it's just super brief. I'm not close to my parents, like physically. I don't live in the same state as they do, but it can really help just to send a message once a week or once every other week, just to check in and say, "Hey, how's the weather? How you doing? What are you loving about yourself this week, or what's going on? Tell me about what you did." These connections, even though they're not directly related to your studies, can really support, like we talked about, that mindset, that place where your mind is, to build some of that mind body connection, to feel successful, to feel momentum, and to not feel that procrastination or any of that disconnection that we were talking about. So, this resilience, this connection creates recovery, creates a new renowned focus in each time that you reach out and build some of this other stuff. So, as we look at first responder wellness, as we look at studying and students in forestry and just learning a lot of really complex things, we grow through things. We don't just avoid things or get overwhelmed. We connect through working with a lot of other people. Fire is almost never an individual sport or an individual study or an individual action. We grow with people. So if you can involve other people in your process as you learn, it will help you in the process as you become a professional. So, as we look at mindfulness as community, you build performance together if you involve other people. So, there's something that one of my teachers used to say as well, and he used to say PPP, which I thought was ridiculous and annoying, but he called it pretty poor planning. And what this equates to as an adult is, if you don't plan, you can plan to fail. And that's what I've heard. I don't always believe 100% in that, because sometimes we can surprise ourselves with being able to take action in expected, more success. Even if you can prepare by saying, "Hey, three steps," success, it helps create gratitude. Learn from, I said, it helps you set up for the next day. If you're looking 1% towards that new goal that I'm finding out, that's what sets out those, like a professional. If we want to be a true amazing learner, it helps to be clear before you just jump in. That's what kind of creates a little bit of that stagnacity, is just jumping in and just hoping for the best. So if you can get specific and know what you need to learn and why it matters to you, it will be more clear and you will learn better. Take those big breaks with those large topics to stay focused in sessions. Like I said, the brain naturally relaxes every 90 minutes. So if you can study for 25 to 30 minutes, rest for 5, 60, 10 minutes, and 90, 15 minutes, just to get that brain into a space where it's learning effectively. Those resets, those little breaks, will create that new momentum and that new motivation every time you sit back down. The active recall, that material that you can teach to somebody else or learn in a new way. So if we are just listening to something, it can help to also write it down or to talk it back out or to actually kinesthetically move through the process and be able to learn it. If you can activate some other cells in learning or teaching this, it will stick a lot better. The visualization piece can also be really helpful because you're getting your mind and your body connected into what this looks like, what the experience is, how this is successful for you. So that's visualization practice. See yourself studying with focus and finishing strong. You can see yourself completing the engine boss task book being boss and then being so being able to visualize mind and your body are going to focus on that as you begin to learn. So, like I said, the top three priorities each day, you start with this big goal that you're like, I know what this is, and then you start breaking it down. These are the top three things that need to happen to become an engine boss. So, if I need to get my firefighter one done first, what three things do I need to get done today to get my firefighter one done? So, things, something, not just do, is momentum, knowing that you are doing something good every day, telling that unconscious mind that yes, this is something I need to continue. Said, what is this person that's successful that I want to model, that I want to be like? What do they believe, do, and focus on that's different than what I currently do? And you can practice what they do, like I said, because it's unconscious for them. Once you become aware of it, you can practice their patterns until they become more natural to you, and eventually they will become unconscious for you. So, do we take a little bit of metaphor like mapping a route? If we're mapping a fire, if we're taking some sort of journey, you need to know kind of the direction you're going, the end result, the place that you're going to end up in. And that takes some planning and consistent checkpoints. Do you need to know how much gas you need? You need to know how many snacks you need. You need to know how many naps you're going to need, with a little bit of deviation on some of those things. But you need to have an idea of where you're going and the end result, as well as being flexible throughout the process. So, as we talk about many different ways of studying, there's a lot of different ways to be successful. Like we talked about creating that mind body connection, celebrating success, telling that unconscious mind how to be successful consistently, modeling really professional and really successful behavior, making sure that you're involving other people in your learning and your success, just making sure that all of these things are falling into place for you. It matters to be successful because that's how you make an impact on the world. That's how you learn things. That's how you incorporate other people's experience into yours. It's how you leave a legacy. It's how you really fulfill your purpose. There's a lot of different ways to learn more effectively for you. And like I said, this should be particular to you as well. So the way I learn and the why of why I learn might be different from yours. So picking the why for you is also really important just to know what works best for you. So you don't need anything like a particular ritual to make sure that you study well, although there are studies in science behind particular smells or chewing gums or all that kind of thing. That's a study, or that's topics for a different day. But you don't need like incense or silence or a meditation app just to make sure that you are focused and actually learning all the material. Sometimes just taking a breath, like I said, doing that wedge into something that's not ideal, that unideal behavior, or the procrastination or whatever it looks like. Maybe I just need to do a quick couple of box breaths. I'm going to take three little box breaths, which, as a reminder, is in for four, hold for four, out for four, hold for four. I'm just going to take three of those breaths in a row, reset that pattern, reset that strategy, and just refocus on, okay, the three things I need to get done to be 1% more successful or 1% more towards my goal, or even 10% more successful today are, and then just focus on those three things. It can also help not to focus on like creating a gigantic to-do list and saying, I'm going to do 12 things before tomorrow and then get really disappointed with yourself when you only get one or two done. It can help to do, I usually recommend 3 to 5. So if we're talking just 3 to 5 things, making sure that I can get a couple of those done and feel good about having success, and then celebrating at that 90% and setting a new goal, even if that's between day to day. So if I'm celebrating today because I was 90% successful, that's going to create momentum into tomorrow where I can do even more successful work. So I want to go over a quick couple Q&As because I had a couple of questions come in from some of my students. And I got one that says, how can mindfulness be used during high stress fields? And I think this is more for university style studying, but it can also be transferred into like high stress environments like firefighting or any of the first responder fields. And mindfulness specifically almost comes back to a little bit of that awareness. So We come into the world with our mind set. That's how we're feeling. That's how we're mind body is connecting. That's what we're showing up with as ourselves. And then the set, the mind set and the setting are two different things. So the set is what's going on with our mind. The setting is what we're experiencing externally. So mindfulness is the attachment of those two, being aware of how our mind and body are working in the moment and being aware of how our mind and body are working with all of the external feedback, taking in all that information with our senses and then doing something with it, processing it with our mind and connecting that to our body. So the mindfulness is really just awareness. And that's how it's useful and used in these high stress scenarios is just being more aware of what's going on around you and how it's affecting you and what you tend to do about it and if anything needs to be changed about that. So if I get really stressed and then I get really calm, which is how I react to things nowadays, is I'm just super focused, I can get things done and I'm able to handle stressful scenarios and then just get it over with. Then I know that I need to kind of recuperate and get some stuff done to reset my nervous system after the fact. But I used to get super highly stressed out and then just break down and get freaked out and overreact. So I would notice during high stress situations, if I am mindful of how I'm reacting, that allows me to change it. So if I used to kind of blow up and get super stressed out, and now I get super calm, what was the process I took to get there? Well, it was taking a couple breaths. It was focusing on the end result. It was making sure that I was confident in calm scenarios so that I could be confident in chaotic scenarios. So that's how mindfulness can be used in high stress environments is just being aware of how your surroundings are affecting you and how your mind and body tend to react. One of the other questions I got are what are some examples of modeling success? So, the way I like to do this is find somebody that I love that does a particular behavior or gets a particular result. And this can be really specific to you. But if somebody else has gotten an engine boss and they're an amazing engine boss, I'm going to go up to ask them and I'm going to say, can I buy you a coffee and sit down with you for 30 minutes and ask you a bunch of questions? I'm going to go do that. And then I'm going to ask them, what was the most important thing about getting your engine boss? What was the most important thing you learned that you didn't realize until after the fact? What was the most important thing about setting yourself up for success? What did you do prior to becoming an engine boss that made you successful? So you're going to get all the pre-steps, all the stuff they did in between, as well as what's important about the result as well, because that will inform kind of that action plan of saying, well, these are the things that are important. These are the things I also need to focus on during the process. So as you're modeling success, like I said, you find somebody that's successful to you and make sure that they are being successful in the area that you're looking at, because somebody might be successful at making a flower bouquet, but you're looking at how to make more money. You know, maybe they're not very good at making money, but they're successful at making a flower bouquet. You don't want to ask them about making money, right? You want to make sure that the success that you are modeling is the thing that you're looking to be successful in, not just successful at something else. So if I'm looking to model somebody that's made a lot of money, I'm going to pick somebody in my life that I know decently well, just to make sure that I am picking up the information that I need from them to learn how to do that. Like I said, how do you prepare most effectively? What are the key processes? What habits do you have? What are the important things to learn? And what really made you successful? What was the most important part about being successful? How did you get there? And what things are key to that success? So, do I have anything else in here? Oh, I got one more question. How do relationships and connections support your mind-body connection? So this kind of comes back to making sure that you're connected with other people. Like I said a little bit before, other people and being connected with others kind of removes that isolation, but it also supports your success. You learn more and they will learn more. Your success, and especially involving other people in your field, will also get them motivated. It has a play on some of those emotions of success. So making sure that you're staying connected, build some of that social requirement as human beings. We've talked about in other Wellness Wednesdays about having different kinds of needs, and one of them is connection and community, in addition to sleep, water, food, those kinds of things. So with that connection, even if you're just building personal relationships and just making sure that those are fulfilled once a week and still studying really hard, you will be more successful than if you didn't. So some of those fulfilling needs as humans and making sure that you're connected, as well as connecting with people within your field, can really impact your success overall. So that's what I've got for questions as well. This one's just a tidbit shorter than normal. As we wrap up here for this Wellness Wednesday, Fire Up runs these Wellness Wednesdays, and I am the facilitator of some of these workshops. They have a ton of resources on their website, which is listed here on the slide, where you can go look up not only the wellness content that I've created in the past, but there's some other posts and stuff in there, and the upcoming ones as well. So there's stuff for Wellness Wednesdays and mindfulness and communication like that. There's also other resources like job fairs, job postings, other sort of career connections, those kind of things. So look at Fire Up just to get connected within this industry and to learn some additional things. If you're looking to dive more deeply into wellness coaching, that's where my business comes in. It's Evergreen Coaching and Wellness. My information is on the screen if you have any further questions on that regard. And the biggest thing I want to recommend and initiate after like really being a successful student or really being a successful learner is to be aware of that mind body connection and really to develop a sense of success within yourself, whether that is learning on your own through kind of trial and error or modeling success and just making sure that you're keeping progress of the things that you're doing well, making sure that you know that you're creating that 1% more success and being like motivated with the success that you are already making, saying that yes, the things that I'm doing now are good and shifting the things that need just a little bit of work that I said that were unideal, just making that wedge and stuff that's been difficult and celebrating at 90% so that you can continue with that momentum and motivation. So it's been great sitting with you all today. I hope you learned something and that you plan on practicing maybe that 1% goal or writing things down or making a new goal and really identifying exactly what you want and how that works in your future. And I look forward to talking with you guys in the month of December for the next Wellness Wednesdays. So I hope you guys are going to have an amazing month and we will talk soon.